Good afternoon. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. I'm very excited about this session. So today, as part of our Startup UMD Business Fundamentals series, we will talk about starting food businesses. And we have three experts on food businesses today with us. Thank you so much. Uh, as you know, food is one of our basic needs, and unlike some other technological advances that have been invented over centuries or millennia, food has been an integral part of our life since humans started walking the earth, and it's not going to go away anywhere because we all have to eat. Food businesses evolved, some not have evolved, um, but many have stayed in power. And so our panelists today are food industry professionals with experience in starting, running, and investing in food-related businesses, and we'll discuss the basics of getting a food business up and running. So first up, we have Timothy Banks. He is Interim Dean of Business and Computer Systems and also Department Chair of the Center for Hospitality and Culinary Studies at Howard Community College. Since entering the hospitality and culinary education profession in 2009, Dean Banks considers teaching his biggest accomplishment to date. He is deeply rewarded by sharing creative thoughts and material that is enriching the lives of future chefs and hospitality professionals. Dean Banks is a futurist who advocates the change and sustainability, making connections, collaborating, and building community connections are the cornerstones of his work. Next up, we have Harry Geller. Harry Geller is an entrepreneur in residence at the University of Maryland. He is an entrepreneur whose career has spanned a broad range of successful startup companies. He has started, owned, and managed 14 multi-million-dollar businesses, primarily focused in the logistics, food service, and real estate fields. 4 of his companies have been named to the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies, and he was also named Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 1992. And last but not least, we have Eric McCoy. Eric is a faculty instructor at the Center for Hospitality and Culinary Studies at Howard Community College. He has been in and around the hospitality industry for more than 25 years in positions from line cook to general manager, executive chef, consultant, and owner. He is a perpetual student of fine dining and hospitality industry. He learned from chefs such as Michel Richard, Gerard Van Gogh, and other Michelin-starred chefs in the U.S. and France. And in addition, he studied finance and business administration at the business school at the University of Maryland, and has been a part of several startups. So now that the official introduction is over, I thought I was gonna let each of you take a moment and take a minute and maybe introduce yourself again and say something that maybe I missed about your background or something that you wanted to highlight. So Harry, do you want to begin?
Yeah, sure. Happy to be here and welcome everyone. And it's very well attended, so that's good to see. And I have a lot of experience in food startups. And in my role as entrepreneur in residence since 2009 at Maryland, I've dealt with a lot of students and professors with food ideas, not all restaurant-based. Some are just product-based ones or science-based ones. So, I feel I have a pretty good, breadth of knowledge about food-related startups. So always happy to help people and, glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Tim?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming out today. I'm Tim Banks, and I am also a certified executive chef and a certified hospitality educator. I've been teaching since 2009, so it's definitely been a passion and a calling for me to be here. Previous to that, I worked for several restaurants, and one of the most unique jobs I had was a recipe development specialist and an executive chef for a large grocery chain in Texas. And you don't always think about chefs and grocery stores, but they had a great relationship of product development, innovative and creative product knowledge. So just a great way to express myself in the culinary world that was completely different from what we think traditional culinary chefs do. So it was a great experience doing that. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Tim. And Eric?
I'm just a lowly little cook. Um, my career is mainly fine dining, but then total truth, Harry and I actually opened up a fast casual pizza restaurant. So we looked at a lot of different aspects of the industry. I know that people are very excited about it. I think that, where we're going can be, if you're innovative and nimble, you can actually make things work. So, there's a lot of opportunity. You just got to figure out where it's at and aim for that niche.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a lot of experience, a lot of passion for food in the room. And I'm sure everybody who's in attendance has that. That's why you're here. So the first question for the panel I have is, as I mentioned, food has been around since the very beginning, and it's been part of our lives. So what type of business models do you see today in the food industry? Do you see, a lot of the traditional? Do you see any new business models? Anything that, has been or has been forgotten, but now making a comeback? So what types of things do you see? So Tim, would you like to start?
Sure, happily. I think what I've noticed most recently is the concentration and focus on niche markets, that restaurant concepts that are rolling out and coming out with new innovative things aren't necessarily putting efforts into big, large, extensive menus, that the influence is more on a particular type of food. So you might not open a Mexican restaurant, but you might open a taqueria. You might not open a large, diverse seafood restaurant, but something very driven and focused in a particular offering. So that seems to be a shift that is growing in popularity over the last probably 4 or 5 years. I've seen more of it come out with very driven, very specific menu offerings that are niche driven, not broad spectrum.
Thank you. Harry, what about you?
I will echo what Tim just said. I split my time between Florida and University of Maryland, and I'm in Florida now, and there's an extremely popular restaurant that's impossible to get in, and all they serve is grouper and chips, and it's either fried grouper, grilled grouper, and French fries, and 2 or 3 soft drinks. That's the menu. There's a line out the door every day. So talk about a niche.
Yeah, spot on, especially in Florida, right?
Yeah. It's incredible. I also see, with COVID, things, at least in my opinion, are never going to get completely back to normal in the food services business. And so, nowadays you need to tailor your thinking to, might be a little harder to find employees. You might have to focus more on takeout and delivery. And, as Eric can expound on this, setting up a kitchen for in-dining restaurant is a lot different than setting up a kitchen for takeout. And if you don't do that with the design of looking at both ends, it's going to screw your kitchen up. So things like that with COVID is really going to make some changes in the food industry.
And along those lines, as you mentioned, Harry, the multiple way the kitchen, we're seeing a lot of ghost kitchens.
Yes.
I know the guy that started Uber was looking to he would have basically one kitchen that would have 5 different concepts coming out of it for delivery only. I don't think it's necessarily the most effective. Don't look at it as a big threat, because it would be the barbecue place. It was all the same chicken tenders fried up. One, they put Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. The next one, they have a Asian flavor. And so it was all the same ingredients, but they were using a lot of the pre-made store-bought product. And one of the other aspects of it, and Tim will echo this, is your labor force is drastically changed, both the expectations of working conditions, the life work balance, how fast they want to move up. So as you're, the classic brigade system of 25 cooks in a 3-star restaurant that are cooking for 60 people really is not feasible in the current climate. And I don't think people are looking as much. You may have 1 or 2 in a city, but not many more than that.
Yeah, thank you.
Somebody's asking the case for pop-ups. Definitely. I mean,
Sure.
pop-ups, I would say, I'll just real quick, is pop-ups are really effective for testing your market and testing your concept. The question becomes is, your challenge is your startup costs. It's really fast. You're out. If you can sustain, that and keep moving, if you're going to keep popping up different locations, it's effective for finding location. I don't know if it's a huge money-making thing unless you have sort of a party thing along. I don't know what you guys
Right.
think.
I think pop-ups are a great idea if you have a bigger goal in mind. That is a temporary stepping stone, that pop-ups aren't sustainable just from the cost of putting them on, right? You're basically doing a private catering event for yourself and selling, product. And there's a lot of pieces and variables in there that are conditional. It could be weather. It could be a lot of things that can affect a pop-up. A parade can throw off a pop-up. So the sustainability of it is fragile. I think they should be occasional, but they should be driven to a bigger goal, either to mobile dining or brick and mortar or a ghost kitchen or something else, but it has to have a pathway in some aspects to what the bigger goal is going to be. Pop-ups are a lot of fun. I've been to some amazing ones and I've thrown a couple. And in that, I can tell you that the work that you put in, the balance back out is not the same. So definitely have a goal that you're focused on trying to get to with your pop-up.
Yep. And we have some questions coming in, so thank you so much. But before we dive into those, I wanted to ask you just a general question. From what you know and your experiences, what type of assets, what type of skills and expertise does somebody need to do to launch a startup? Does, if I am a great cook here at home, can I just go and open up a restaurant, or do I need other things?
You need other things for sure. If anybody wants to take it, please do. But there's a lot of variables involved with starting a restaurant beyond the passion for cooking. That is a great point of beginning, but unless you're going to invest your time and energy and learning about the business aspects associated with it, you can have the best apple pie on the market. But if you're not balancing how your financials are and what your workload is and what your goals and models are going to be, then you're going to be missing pieces, and you will spend a lot of time in that chase of I'm doing this, but I'm not seeing the end results. So you have to really align yourself with some good, solid goal setting that's going to be rewarding in knowledge. You have to learn the business before you can be the business. And you'll hear people say, oh, just do it. You love it, just do it. That's not the best way to jump off, into the deep end of the pool. You got to know how to navigate and what's best for you and what your product is going to be and how it's going to perform. You got to have some market analysis about it as well. You don't want to be the best guy next to the best guy, because when you're both the best guy, you're constantly competing for the same customer. So what's your differentiation and what are you bringing to the table that's going to make your product really shine and make it sustainable and long lasting? So people want to invest or want to experience what your product's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, more on that, just from a restaurant perspective, and I think Eric would agree with me on this, is execution trumps food quality and location trumps food quality. So putting out, if you're a good chef and you think, well, I should do a restaurant, I mean, good food is about the third most important thing. And so, really operationally being able to execute and for a bricks and mortar restaurant, finding a good location is more important than even putting out good food quality.
The other thing you have to consider is your regulatory. So you're going to have your serve safe managerial if you're going to open up your restaurant. It's a requirement through the restaurant association. The health department is going to come and inspect you, understanding all the sanitation. You can make the greatest chef or the greatest cook in the world, but if you poison your customers, they're not going to be there. The next thing to consider is, I'll never say that it's impossible. I mean, you have Patrick O'Connell and Jeremiah Tower, both incredibly famous chefs that literally started their career cooking out of the Julia Child cookbook. But the ability to cook for 4 people is a different skill set than cooking for 400. Understanding what you're producing, how fast you can move, your ability to, the one I always use is, as you move through your career, I can make 200 cupcakes an hour. Okay, good. How much can you sell them for? How much did it cost you to make? You know, you have to take these into account. The other aspect is, what are you opening? Your skill level needed to work on a food truck can be a decent quality line cook. Your skill set to operate a full service restaurant that has waiters, dining room, busboys, and all that, you're adding managerial. You have to be able to cook with the seasons. You have to have a lot deeper knowledge in the culinary arts. So really you would have to tailor, if you're running a food truck with 1 or 2 other people that you're right next to, is much easier than if you're running an operation with 100 employees. So you also have to figure out what is your goal and what is your end goal going to be.
And can you
Question
talk a
in the
little bit
chat.
about, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. You go ahead. I was just going to respond to a question in the chat, but go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to follow up on that and ask, what is considered a success in a food business? So what are some of the healthy profit margins? What type of things, what type of expenses should somebody think about? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's not just, I make food and I sell it. What other things should be taken into account? And how do you know you're actually making money
Eric?
or have a healthy operation?
Give
Actually,
the numbers we always discussed.
oh God, I mean, we were
Awesome.
calculated. I think, what were we talking? $62 a square foot was our goal, was our target minimum. We're at 408 pizzas a day. I know was our absolute point where we were like at 408 pizzas a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah. So, generally on restaurants, bricks and mortar restaurants, $400, $400 to $500 a square foot in sales usually denotes a restaurant above break even. Anything under 400, you're probably treading water or in trouble. And then, basically food costs what, in the 32% range, Eric?
I wish. It's going up now with the.
Yeah, right. But food and labor should be run at about 60%, and what we call your occupancy costs, which is rent, insurance, CAM, things like that, should be in the 10% range. Those are basic standard industry standard type numbers.
Yeah, thank you.
If you don't throw up the slide just to give people a feeling for it.
Yeah, so Eric prepared this.
I draw it on the board every time, and my handwriting's awful. So bear with the sort of cartoonish of what ends up happening is your sales are coming in through the top. So think of it as a stock pot, you're making soup. Your first level is taxes. Next one I always put is payroll. I know a lot of people will argue to put rent, but that red line is the point where the government will come after you. So if you haven't paid your staff or you haven't paid taxes, you go, well, we didn't make any money. You're still collecting sales tax. You have to collect sales tax, and that's still the total amount of money that's coming in the operation. So you end up writing a check at the end of the month and sending it on to the county, state, or whoever you're working for, or working in. Then your payroll. Next thing is your cost of goods. So everything from the plastic silverware, if you're doing a food truck, to the to-go containers, your food, everything is in there. The next step, if you're in a brick and mortar and you're doing plates and glasses, same thing. Your next point is your rent. If it's a food truck, it could be that's your gas. It's whatever you have to pay. Utilities, we can add a million more spigots on this. You could add everything. If you're operating, you need to have internet, even in a food truck, to run your POS and take your mobile orders. So you have to have the hotspot. You need to have gas, electric, water, sanitation, everything, so these are all those aspects to it. Another one that, you could add another one, which is your repairs and your maintenance. Insurance, you're required by your landlord to carry a certain amount of insurance on, if somebody slips and falls or if somebody gets sick. And then finally, if everything's going well, you've probably taken a loan to start the restaurant. So you're paying a service on that debt. And even if you're a successful restaurant, you have a line of credit. Think of how many restaurants right now are paying down that line of credit from the COVID times. So you're paying on the money that you borrowed at some point. And then finally, at the very, very, very top is your chance for profit. So you have to fill enough that at all times, all of these are leaking, and they're always on and they're always pouring out. So you have to have enough sales at the top to keep it filled while all these other spigots are pouring out money at the same time. And that's when you hit profit. And we were talking just before we went on, the successful rate was in the 90s, it used to say 10% would be like the ideal, you're hitting everything right. And I saw an interview with Gordon Ramsay, and he talked about somebody who's famous and has very popular restaurants. He's commentary is we went from 10% in the 90s, early 2000s. He's like, if you make 4 to 6% profit on a brick and mortar at this point, you're doing well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think that that's good basic information, and we can follow up with those numbers if anybody wants that as well. But why don't we take some questions? Thank you for everyone to everyone who sends them the questions. So keep submitting them. Tim, there was one you wanted to tackle. Which one?
Sure. And it was a question about brick and mortar as well, due to COVID. And I think that coming out of COVID, brick and mortar is going to be fine. You just have to be diversified, right? You got to know when you go in that you're going to have customers with particular preferences, and some are going to be willing to eat in, and some are going to want it to go. And you got to have curbside pickup. You got to be built out for fast grab and go, the Ubers, Eats, and the DoorDash people to come in. I see restaurants now struggle sometimes with balancing where these people and actions are happening. It gets clustered sometimes, but it needs to be thought about when you're thinking about opening a brick and mortar space now, that these are relative things that are factors in, and the costs associated with some of these third-party services. That DoorDash has a fee, Uber has a fee, Grubhub, these are all fees that you consume in the restaurant. You got to look at as part of your profit that's going to go out with your food. So you have to just be aware of all aspects moving into brick and mortar. I think it will survive. I just think you got to be flexible, you got to be diversified, and you got to meet the needs of the clientele that's going to be coming your way, your location.
No, I think absolutely that people still want to go out. And it also depends on your concept. I think we may have moved from where your goal was to have less than 10% of your operation, the kitchen space, to where you're moving to more of a 25% because you're sending out 50% in to go. So you may expand your actual kitchen production area. Think of a McDonald's versus a fine dining restaurant where they have so much more to go. So the kitchen's really 50% of the operation and not get tied in. There are opportunities at this point because so many restaurants that went out of business. There are chances to actually negotiate lower rents and to push back and to actually start something at this point.
Yeah, thank you. So here's so I hope that was a good answer to those who asked. There were several questions about brick and mortar versus other models. But the next question here we have is, I'm starting as a vendor at a local farmer's market. One of the requirements of the county is to have proof of cooking in a commercial kitchen. This can be very costly. Do you have any suggestions or recommendations as to finding a less costly option? It's a good question, I think, that everybody has on their mind.
Well, I think it depends on what your product is. And if you look at the Cottage Act, the Maryland Cottage Act, it will tell you what you can actually prepare at home that has to be labeled a particular way and what the standard has to be. I know baked goods, jams and jellies, things like that come under the Cottage Act. But if it's protein related, chances are it's going to need to come from a commercial kitchen or a rental space. So look at kitchen rental space as an option. And just by shopping around, you know, you never know. You could find a great deal. We had a person that used to work here with us that started off in a kitchen concept of shared kitchen space and grew to her own actual outlet. So it's possible if you're going to manage the costs associated with it and the amount of time it takes you to prepare and get your product ready to sell. So at a farmer's market, I would look at the finite amount of sales and what you want to do during that window of operation.
I think too,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Derek.
No, go ahead. I lost my
I
train.
think beg, borrow, and steal is the old adage they taught us in entrepreneurship. And how many restaurants, if you're willing to figure it out, you could go to a restaurant, you may know the owners and say, can I come in and utilize your restaurant from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. to do my production, and I'll pay this. And so that from a restaurant perspective, if they trust you enough to let you in the kitchen, they might be willing to give you the keys, and they're able to make money when they're not there. So they're covering some of their costs. So, you know, it's a lot of networking and trying to figure out maybe, and or churches and stuff like that as well.
And firehouses, fire departments as well have commercial kitchens sometimes that they will rent out space in.
Mm-hmm.
And caterers.
Yeah, and all of them, think about it, if you sell it from the perspective of from midnight until 10 a.m., you have nobody here. How would you like to make $60 an hour on that? And if it's covering the cost of the utilities and that sort of thing, you know, $60 5 days a week it may cover some of the rent costs in a significant way and be advantageous to a operation.
You know, conversely, if it's not a cottage industry product, which I think the person asking the question sent a chat on that, then, you know, you have to determine, is it really worth having this product out there, because it just may be cost prohibitive.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
All right, so thank you. So we have next question. So somebody's asking about percentages for payroll and for food. We will follow up. I can follow up by email. Eric can send me those percentages and I can send that by email. I know those are important numbers to know, so we'll do that. Here's the next question.
It used to be the rule of thirds, a third for food, third for labor, and then you had the 23% for your utilities, all that stuff. That used to be the old rule of thumb, but there's no guarantee on it.
Yeah. So here's the next question. I am in the process of opening a wine bar in a tourist area known for having wineries, and we are planning to offer smoked meats to pair with wine. No other competition in this area is offering this option. Any suggestions on where I should start to gain investors or funding? Also, I am nearly done with my business plan and I'm not sure if I should form a company on my own using LegalZoom or if I should reach out to an attorney instead to help form LLC or S Corp.
Well, I'll answer the back end, and I'm a big fan of LegalZoom or Incorporate.com or any of those. I've formed dozens of companies online, and it's not that attorneys are bad; they're very helpful, but they have to make their money too. So you're going to pay probably double of what you could get on the internet. So, you know, part of my mantra of quick scaling is, you know, using as many of the readily available tools online that you can use, and incorporating would be one of them.
And just a general rule of thumb, I think every business professor would tell you to do an LLC. Without reading your business plan, we have no clue, but the vast majority, it's going to be LLC. In this kind of topic, I think, you're looking to do the wine bar. This is a perfect example where we were asking about pop-ups. So if you were able to do something that was pop-up to prove concept and showcase it, not necessarily to raise funds, but raise awareness, that's the point where you're going to find your investment. It's not, you have to showcase, if every time you do a pop-up, there's a huge number of people, there's more people that are going to be willing to invest than if, you're just running around saying, I have this great plan, look at my plan, look at my plan, because there's a lot of those.
And
Also, wine inventory is very expensive, and leasing space in wine country tourist areas is very expensive. So, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to look to raise a lot of money for that.
And my only point was that if you're going to feature smoked proteins as your differentiator, I would try to partner with someone in the area that's already doing that and feature their product at your location.
Right.
Versus trying to incorporate smoking meats at your location, and that's a whole nother layer of things that you need to add on that aren't necessary to be a wine bar. So try to partner with someone local and sustainable, and tout that would be a good thing for both businesses to grow from.
And the smoked meats are one of those areas that, from a regulatory perspective, they can be quite challenging. It's its own HACCP plan due to the curing, the smoking. We teach it here, but we can only really do it from an educational perspective. We can't serve it to the public because of the laws in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Those are uncooked meats, the ones that are like fermented and that sort of thing. So those are unique. Salamis, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Definitely.
With any looking for startup financing, which is always very difficult if you don't have a name, starting with the friends and family is always a good first place to start. And as you build traction and get your name out there, then more people will be willing to invest. But in the beginning, you're just another face in the crowd. So friends and family is always a good place to start.
Great.
yeah. And the person just followed up saying we plan to do a pop-up during a fest this summer to get noticed. Thanks for the answer. So that's a good way to go.
Sure.
Excellent.
So would you recommend that's also a good way to start looking for investors, is to get people interested in really liking your concept, and hopefully
Getting early adopters, getting champions.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, the whole thing is how many restaurants. The old joke used to be 4 doctors and a lawyer went to dinner. A restaurant was born. And so back in the 90s, when it was less expensive, some high net individuals would go to a place, really like the restaurant, and then convince the chef that he should start his own. We'll invest in it. Next thing you know, they're off to the races. So as Harry mentioned, having that name, your pop-up is effectively your marketing aspect. 1 is proof of concept. 2, it's not going to be what makes you the money. It's going to be the thing that makes your name, that people become interested enough to invest money into you. Pairing with wineries, that sort of thing.
Yep. Here's a question that I think might elicit some interesting responses. Do you see the food space ever being replaced by a pill for all of our food needs?
No, I'll just throw it out there. I don't think so. I like to eat food. I don't think a pill would give me the same level of satisfaction that I get from grazing around a plate of food. The process, the communication, the sharing, everything that comes along with experiential dining is valuable. to the soul, the mind, the body, the soul, all benefits from that. I just don't think a pill would satisfy. You'd be taking more than one to get to that level of outcomes. So now, I think from a nutritional standpoint, is it possible? Yes, but I think that's why they don't do it in outer space. They actually put peanut butter in the foil packet, right? Because they want peanut butter. They don't want a pill. So,
I mean, as an emergency, you know, if you could produce these without stimulant, because I don't really know how you would be satiated taking a pill. But, you know, as an emergency, you know, there could be some utility in that. But as, you know, like Dean Banks said, you know, half of the enjoyment of food, if not more, is just the experience of it.
And yeah, I agree. I mean, you maybe you're looking more at a diet perspective where people, when it becomes a health issue, I don't think you're going to replace food. It's too communal. It's too much in a part of our species. I mean, the old joke, or not joke, but the old adage is you can take people of the world and sit them down and have a meal together. You can solve the world's problems.
Yep. Here's the next question. And you discussed some of this and what you were talking about, but what do you all believe is more efficient for startups in regards to food trucks, brick and mortar, or ghost kitchens?
Depends what you want to do.
Yeah.
and they can all be building blocks to each other. If you got a hot dog cart turns to food trucks turn to hot dog outlet. It just depends on what you want to do and where you see yourself. Or if you want to stop at hot dog cart and have 50 hot dog carts, that's an equitable business as well. So you just have to decide which one is going to be best for you. That's my retirement plan, a hot dog cart.
Oh, that's great.
I'd love it.
Producing.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Here's the next question. I want to open a coffee shop in the future. In your opinions, what are the first steps I should take to reach this goal?
Work at a coffee shop.
Learn how to do it on somebody else's dime. If somebody else is paying you how to be able to make 200 coffees an hour, it's better than you taking a bunch of loans, buying the equipment, and then you start at 50, maybe you start at 20 coffees an hour, and then you finally work your way up to 200 coffees an hour. Get paid learning your skills.
Yeah.
That is step one.
Yep.
And find out if you love it. If you don't love this industry, you're going to be out of it pretty quickly. It's a tough industry, but it's something that if you have to love. So find out if you love it.
Yeah. Here's the
Very
next
important.
question. Yeah, very important. Next question is, should we lease equipment, etc., starting off to cut cost, or would it be beneficial to start with your own equipment, employees, and everything else?
Lease.
Yeah.
Save
Lease as
Yeah.
much as you can, unless
Yeah.
it's specialized that you have to buy.
Right.
That was a short and quick answer from
Yeah, you want to hold on
everybody.
to your cash for whatever you're going to need it for. So lease is definitely the best option.
Yep.
It's easier to pay rent day by day than it is to pay off big pieces of equipment.
Yep. Here's the next question. With present food inflation and future projections of it going higher, do you have any tips to navigate this?
Don't have a permanent menu. Don't have it like permanently etched on the walls. Don't have it permanent. Have ability to change prices. As prices go up and people see it in the grocery stores, they have to accept the fact that you're going to have to raise your prices.
Yeah,
Right.
I would add, do a lot of let's say you're selling hamburgers and chicken, do a lot of diligence within a mile radius of where you're operating, what people are charging for this, and you have to work backwards. Okay, the average hamburger used to be $8.95. Now it's $12.95. Can I make a business out of this? Given food costs are up, and they're going to go down, but how much they're going to go, they never really go down to where they were. So you're going to have some inflationary aspects to it. So just do your diligence on what other people are charging, and can you make money at that?
Right, know your comparables.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that a single operator is going to be able to hedge their that's the sort of thing that, big McDonald's is currently hedging. They're in the meat futures buying what they think they're going to need. We don't have that option. We just have to be nimble and efficient. And the other thing is, and work through what we have. So to a degree, make sure it's the due diligence and you're pricing properly, but also expect that you don't make a expectation that you can solve the problem. You're just going to have to react to that. It's too big.
Mm-hmm. Here's the next question. What is your opinion on hiring a restaurant consultant to help a struggling early food business?
Personally, I think if you see value in that, it could be beneficial, but the more you educate yourself on what's going on around you, what the climate is, what your niche market is, or what your business model is, and take a deep dive into it and learn about it yourself, you're going to come out equally as strong than if you hire a consultant. Now, hiring a consultant versus consulting with others is optimal also. You can get with groups of people, share ideas, find out, make friends in the industry that you want to be a part of, and start to share content with each other. If budget is a restraint, but if you got the money and say, yes, I want a consultant to help me with this project, you can definitely do that. But I think the more knowledge you have and the more understanding you have about the business, the better you'll be in the end. And you do that through networking, meeting people, fact finding, seeing what's really going on out there, comparison shop, just get really involved in it. Make it your 24-hour passion, and it'll work out for you.
Yeah, even adding to that, what Tim said is, some of your key employees that you trust, ask them honest assessment. What do you think's going on here? Well, you don't know, but people are stealing from you, or this one's doing this, or that one's doing that. So asking your peers for fresh sets of eyes on things, asking your key employees, that's part of what Tim was saying about educating yourself. So before you go out and spend $20,000 or $30,000 on a consultant.
It also depends on what the problem you're trying to figure out. I think if you've got yourself in you're having a locational issue and you just can't get the foot traffic, there's no consultant in the world that's going to be able to solve that problem. On the other hand, if it's a issue where you're inefficient on your food cost, or perhaps you're having trouble getting the food out, and having somebody that has the experience to look at your menu and maybe streamline the menu so that you can put the food out in the expected time so that you don't have the complaints. That's something you may consider. And the joke is actually having consulted with restaurants. Most food consultants are failed restaurateurs. So yeah, to a degree, who are you hiring?
Look at window of opportunity. It's nothing worse than being open and no customers, right?
Right.
Your opportune time. Do you need to be open at 6 a.m.? Maybe not. Maybe you need to be open at 9 a.m. Look at your windows of opportunity. Look at your demographic mix. What's in the area? Are you trying to open a hamburger spot in a vegan neighborhood? You have to think about those things as how is this playing into what my outcomes are? It's very essential.
Thank you. Here's the next question. What are some sources you can recommend for purchasing food, poultry, and meat at wholesale or bulk costs?
Depends on the quality.
And for what purpose? For restaurant purposes, or for personal, or for sundry type sales? Because most restaurant and catering food service companies use Cisco or US Foods or Martin Brower or one of those type companies, the big category killing, broad-based suppliers. And, from there you can introduce, local type vegetables, local type purveyor, butcher purveyors, depending on what you're trying to do. But it's fairly easy to find the food suppliers.
What are some of the bigger ones that's just kind of like your generic quality, not the super high end, but generic quality? And then maybe if you know some of the high end ones.
Cisco spelled, SYSCO. You see their trucks everywhere. US Foods, Reinhard, Martin Brower, are big ones. I mean, if you're in a location, go sit in the back of a competitor's building and watch which trucks come in and out, or send one of your staff to do that.
I think
Look for local food shows. Whenever food shows in town, go.
Yeah, absolutely. But the other thing is, I've talked to people, and the biggest mistake I've seen is the penny wise, pound foolish. So you have Restaurant Depot. So if you're going to do something like a catering operation, you have the license, you can go to Restaurant Depot, Costco, those sort of places, and pick up the food. I talked to one guy, and he had a diner, and he would go to Costco and buy everything, and then drive back and put it in his operation. And when asking, he said, why? And he's like, because I can get the milk 25 cents less a gallon. I said, how many gallons of milk are you buying? He says, I usually buy 8 gallons of milk. I said, are you saving that on everything? He's like, usually by me shopping, I can save about $50. I said, okay. How long does it take you to shop? How much wear and tear on your car? How much are you spending on gas? And he's like, okay, well, it takes me about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. I said, so you're saying your time, you couldn't, and then the wear and tear comes down to about $10 an hour. You're paying people for that. You're paying people more than $10 an hour. Can you figure out a better way to spend your time? So having that delivery service that comes in and drops off your food at your brick and mortar, they may be a little more expensive at certain points, but what it saves you is at time. You can use those 3 hours to market, to develop new restaurants, to look at efficiencies within your own operation, to cut an employee, you're paying $15 an hour, and work the till yourself. So be wise.
Yep, good point. And then the next question we have is, do you have any thoughts on franchising?
Depends on the franchise.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A, yes, great.
Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, if it's a known entity that gives you a lot of support, and your goal is just to operate from, I just want to make, you're not going to have the freedom to do your vision. But if your goal is just to open something, so that you lose control and vision, but you gain structure and sort of a proven concept, depending on which one you go with. There's a lot of people that are franchised. I did one, I'm going to franchise, come buy it. And how much support is in there?
Right. That's the key, is the support. But, it's kind of a path of least resistance. It's not always a bad way to go, particularly if you have a good location or you believe in the concept and you're, getting some of the better locations. It could work very well.
Mm-hmm. Here's a great question. What are some of the cost-effective ways to conduct customer discovery, tastings, understand preferences, etc.?
If you figured that one out, the most cost-effective way of figuring out customer discovery, forget opening a restaurant. Go start a restaurant consulting business. That's the magic sauce.
If it's tastings, I would use employees. If it's, surveys, I would use students. I get a lot of students who have food ideas, and I always make them go pick a corner somewhere in Washington, D.C., where there's a big apartment building, and stand out there and ask 3 questions to 100 people and see what they have to say. So cost effective, I don't know. I mean, that's, a little more difficult.
See if you can sell it.
Yeah, or if you have a marketing budget, put that in your marketing budget. Anytime you do a sample or a tasting or anything like that, put a line item in there for your marketing to cover that cost. So at least you'll know at the end of the day where you spent it and what it was intended for.
Right.
So you're not thinking that, oh, I'm losing on this side, but you're actually using some of your marketing dollars to influence that. And someone had a question about marketing. I saw in the chat earlier. It's social media, right? It's free. It's a way to meet people. It's a way to get your name out there. I've been to several concepts just off of social media alone because someone sent me some link and said, check this out. Tell me what you think. Next thing you know, I'm in line eating a crab egg roll for the 10th time and deciding which one I like the best. So it's social media is the marketing tool to use.
It depends on what your product is. If you
Yeah,
have a
but-
pre-prepared product, if you can get it, I know that there was a mention of a farmer's market. If you can go there and either sell it or get people to taste it, that's one. If you're looking for a restaurant, I know that when we were looking at locations, not that it worked out for us, I went down for over a week and counted how many people went into the 2 locations that were along the same street for lunch. So to figure out what, now all the other buildings closed on us, but that was good market. Like how many people were in this area for lunch? So there was a Au Bon Pain and there was a Potbellies. And I sat there with the little clickers and just counted how many people went in every hour.
Mm-hmm.
Did that for a week at each place.
Yeah, and I also wanted to do a very quick plug. So University of Maryland has farmers market. They're resuming operations and they're actually looking for vendors, and they're very much welcome into student vendors. So if you have anything, so if you're a student or faculty or staff at the University of Maryland, and you would like to conduct customer discovery, reach out to the farmers market operators and see if they can give you a table. They're very much welcome into the community. And if you're a community as well, so it's not just limited to University of Maryland, reach out to them. They're there every Wednesday. So that would be a good way to do
Mm-hmm.
customer discovery before signing the lease on your building.
Excellent idea.
Yep. So yeah, and thank you, Tim. You already answered the question on best way to market your business. Social media,
Okay.
important. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything else to add?
Yeah.
Well, I know, Harry, that one of the things you always tell people, and I'll repeat it here, is that make sure that you have a website. If you don't have a web presence, a social media presence, today you don't exist.
Right.
That's important.
The other day I was looking for a local restaurant and, I got 2 or 3 choices and I clicked one of their websites and it's like under construction. So it's like, all right, they're ruled out. Then, I went to the one that had a website. Maybe they were the 3rd best of the 3, but, they had a website. So that's how consumer behavior works.
Right. And the QR code is driving all menus now. So they've got to have a website for a landing page.
Yeah.
If you're going to do, we're trained now to look for the QR code. 3 years ago, you went and got a menu in your hand. Now you go in and you look for the QR code. It's automatic. And it's in all levels, from fine dining to fast casual to grab and go. It's there.
And it's easy to change a price for the inflation question. It's easy to change a price on a computer. Than it
Right.
is
Look how that has
billboard.
affected costs. That's reduced costs tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. Yep. And here's one more question. Is there a reason so many restaurants didn't make it through the pandemic? Is it because they didn't have cash in their reserves?
A lot of restaurants, probably the majority, run on very thin margins.
Mhm.
And something like the pandemic just, they couldn't, I feel horrible for these people. And I think it's tragic what happened to them. A lot of these people had, their life savings, their life streams into these things. And it's, it doesn't feel good, but a lot of restaurants, good restaurants that make a lot of profit are very rare. So I think for the most part, the ones that went under were, operating on thin margins and just couldn't recover from, the shutdown or the consumer behavior slowdown,
Right.
or weren't enough to pivot on delivery and things like that.
I think the other thing you can look at too is, I saw a stat that the franchised Starbucks operations that you have a franchise, you actually own it, you operate it, only makes money for the last day and a half. The rest of so if you have 31 days, the first 30 and a half or 29 and a half days, you're working for the franchisor, you're paying for your goods, you're paying for your rent, you're paying for your labor. And it's not until that last 1.5 days that you're making real profit. It's almost like the old toy store model where they really only made money that last year of December. And if I shut you down for 2 weeks and you're only making profit, how much money do you have in reserve? Particularly if you didn't have a drive-through already set up and they said you couldn't serve people inside, you couldn't do this. And so one, it was, did you have the ability to pivot to only drive-through? And it depended on the area. So there's a lot of aspects to it. This is the thin margins that Harry was talking about. There's so many aspects about it. Loss of workforce. People got scared to go to work when it first hit in. There's a million reasons why people got so frustrated and we're like, okay, I'm out. Let me cut my losses while I can. And the landlords had run the rent up so high, particularly in downtown areas, because landlords have consolidated. It used to be you could negotiate a better rent 25 years ago because there was 25 landlords. Now there's what, 2 or 3, excuse me, 2 or 3 major companies in any one city, unless you're in New York. There's like 5 in DC.
Yeah. So it's sad though. I hate to see it.
Well, thank you so much. We are at.
One little point from the landlord perspective. My uncle is works for a company that rents space in strip malls, and they have several. And he was quite honest. He's like, look, the way we look at a restaurant when they come in, they come in, they build it out. If they do good, great, we just collect rent. They don't do well, we move them out. We charge a higher rent because they've already built the place out. And then we charge them rent. If they don't work, we'll find the next guy that's going to move in. And that's been the view of landlords for the last 10 years. So the one thing I will say is when you do this, I didn't know how important it was. And thank God for Harry, have a real estate attorney and careful of that personal guarantee. I can't thank him enough for fighting that. I was like, why are we fighting? And now I'm like, so have a lawyer, particularly on that lease negotiation.
Anything bad you think can happen will likely happen. So just prepare yourself for it. It's cliche, but it's true.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, we are at time, and miraculously we answered all of the questions that came in. But I'd like to thank Harry, Tim, and Eric for your time. I'd also would like to thank everybody who attended today. And actually, as a last question, very quickly, round robin, if you could name your favorite food establishments that you like to frequent today.
Wow.
Too many to pick from.
Well, you can name a few.
Just too many. My kitchen, I think.
I'm a big fan
Obviously.
for fast food of Chick-fil-A. Big fan.
Good one.
Yeah.
And I like, I usually try to find local places, but Italian delis. I love, Italian cold cut subs. So wherever I'm at, I try to find the best Italian deli. Big fans of those. There's a fast food place a lot in the Midwest and West, and there's a lot in Florida called Culver's. And it's like a hamburger place, so they have really good frozen custard. So we go there a lot too. So.
They have excellent frozen custard at Culver's. You're right.
Yeah, and there's not too many, not any in the East Coast that I've seen. But so those are my favorites.
Yeah, thank you. And Tim, what about you?
If I had to boil it down and pick one, there's a little small family restaurant by my house called Stained Glass Pub.
Yeah, I know that.
That's fish and chips, man. Oh, it's about the fish and chips for me.
Great. Eric, what about you?
Well, we have kids. We eat at Five Guys because the kids like Five Guys.
So do I.
Yeah, no, I like it too. It's a point where they're like, we want Five Guys. I'm like, really, again? A lot of times if I'm given the option, we usually eat at small family, different, whatever we have a taste for, whether it's there's a El Salvadorian up the street from us. There's also there's a Ethiopian. So I tend to try to get rather eclectic. I think my tastes have definitely moved more to experiencing the world and less like trying to find the perfect restaurant.
Thank you. So again, thank you so much, Eric, Tim, and Harry. And I know Tim has a very lively Instagram account. So if you'd like to follow his food adventures, follow him on Instagram.
Sure, iChef Tim on Instagram.
Yep.
What's that again?
And-
Say one more time.
It's iChef Tim, and I have a food one too that is feed.yourself.well. So either one.
Yep. So follow him. He posts really yummy stuff there all the time from his own kitchen and local establishments as well.
Mhm.
Um,
'Cause I love
and
to eat.
yeah, Harry Geller is again, so he's our entrepreneur in residence, and he's available for meetings weekly to University of Maryland faculty, staff, and students. And also students and faculty and staff from Coppin State University, Bowie State, Morgan State, and University of Baltimore through our EDA grant. So please schedule time with Harry. He has been a mentor to many, many, many startups. So again, thank you so much, Eric, Tim, and Harry for your time. And again, thank you to everyone who came to our workshop today.
Thank
I
you.
will follow up with a link to the recording when it's posted to our Startup UMD YouTube channel. All right.
Take care. Thank you.
Hey, Ala, you got 1 minute on another subject? I'll
Yep.
call you.